She was tenacious but managed to combine a wicked sense of humour with diplomacy to lead her community's fight to save its local hospital. Pat Morris campaigned for years for Altrincham General. She didn't think she was anything special, but as I discovered, her hometown thought just the opposite.
This is a load of rubbish, it's cobblers, it's all about money.
I think people like Pat are vitally important, and I've got great admiration for her and people like her.
I felt I needed to take up this fight on behalf of the elderly of the community.
She's done so much for them. She's campaigned so much.
It's not just the building that people love. It's what is more important is the service it provides.
She's always been very kind to people. She very open-minded. She wouldn't stop if she thought it was a bad idea to say that something was unjust.
Pat Morris was a nurse for more than 20 years, although she didn't join the profession until she was in her 40s. But she never forgot her working class roots in Manchester. In fact, she once joked with me saying, "Andy, you can take the girl out of Hume, but you can't take the Hume out of the girl." And it was that ability to relate to ordinary people that stood her in such good stead when Pat the carer became Pat the campaigner. When 2 wards for the elderly were closed at Altrincham General Hospital, Pat Morris resigned as a nurse and went on the warpath. Fearing the hospital would close for good, she rallied the community behind her, even paying for coaches to take supporters to meetings.
These people of Altrincham have fought decade after decade to keep Altrincham Hospital, and by God, whatever their decision today, if it's as we suspect, we cannot open the beds. The thing is, let the trust be warned, the battle goes on.
Realising the crucial role of the media, Pat quickly became a familiar face in the local press. It's fantastic, isn't it, for a paper to have a character like Pat who is leading a campaign like this, because it's just what you need, isn't it?
It is, yes. She's really galvanised everybody. You know, whenever there's been a threat to any health services in the area, she would organise public meetings. She never gave a moment's peace to the health authorities, and she really kept everything at the forefront.
In 2006, Pat even risked losing her own home. She took Trafford Primary Care Trust to the High Court because the public weren't consulted over the ward closures. Had she lost, she faced legal bills of £80,000. She won the landmark judicial review, but the wards didn't reopen.
I think personally it's a hollow victory for me because deep down inside I really hoped the judge might order the trust to reopen the wards.
Even NHS bosses like Tim Riley, who used to work at Trafford, couldn't disguise their admiration. What kind of opponent was she?
Well, I never really thought of her as opponent, actually. She was an interesting adversary because she really stood up for things that mattered to her and her local community. And she did it in a way that always, commanded dignity and with integrity.
But Pat's biggest fight was still to come. Last December, she was diagnosed with a brain tumour. She never allowed self-pity to dim her commitment.
From now right until whatever date, I'm still here. I will go on campaigning relentlessly. And I think the community have to have full credit. I really truly believe that. When you think of our local community and they think of Altrincham, the heart of Altrincham has always been Altrincham General Hospital. You cannot separate the two.
Despite her illness, Pat loved nothing more than catching up with the people she had come to call friends during her years of campaigning. Her biggest concern remained care for the elderly, particularly those who she felt would suffer without a local hospital.
There are 10,000 people in South Trafford who do not have access to a car. So if outpatient services at Altrincham General closed, it would mean at least 3 bus rides to get to Trafford General. Now, when you are elderly and it takes 3 bus rides, how do you get there? So I campaign to keep our community hospital, and the community itself are the ones that have kept it going, really.
Oh, she's inspired me no end. I mean, I've done a lot of work, but when I see what Pat's done, she's a saint. She is a saint.
Pat and David were married in 1990. She always credited him for his unstinting support during her campaigns. As Pat's illness progressed and she moved into a nursing home, he was always by her side. You make a good team, don't you?
Well, I like to think so. We work as a team, and it seems to work very well. She's the mouthpiece, and I ease the passage.
Ever practical, Pat had even planned ahead for David.
Men never buy any new clothes, so it's always the women. And when it comes to bedding and towels, they will put a towel in the washing machine that you can see through. So went out and bought bedding towels to last him the next 5 years. What he does after that is up to him, because I won't be around.
After years of fighting for other people, Pat Morris finally lost her own battle with cancer. She'd been given 6 months to live. Typically, she lasted for 9.
Mum wasn't just a nurse for 20 years. She was a nurse all her life. Because being a nurse isn't about a badge or a uniform or a PIN number. Being a nurse is about caring for people. It's about making people's lives better. Nursing's about advocating for people that haven't got a voice of their own and fighting for people who are too weak and too frail to fight for themselves. Pat never shied away from caring. She never shied away from making people's lives better. She never shied away from advocating for people without a voice. And she never shied away from fighting for people too weak and too frail to fight for themselves.
Her sense of humour always shone through. Pat even managed to have a giggle planning her send-off.
The funeral directors phoned me up and said, "Will you be wanting to stop outside the hospital?" So I said, "What hospital?" He said, "Aldringham General." I said, "Well, why would I want to stop the car outside Aldringham General?" He said, "Well, you campaigned enough for it." I said, "Oh my God," I said, "can you imagine my funeral be announced and the Trafford Healthcare Trust will say, 'Thank God she's off our backs.' And the next thing is, we've got a photograph." I said, "It's worth dying for. Let's do it."
She's still here. We can't get rid of her.
Yeah, I thought it was so funny.
Sadly, Pat Morris won't be around to see what appears to be a happy ending. There are plans for a new hospital in Altrincham, which could open in 2012. Some people have said that Pat's legacy will be the new hospital in Altrincham. What would you say to that?
Yes, I think in a way that's a fitting tribute. I'm not saying it couldn't or wouldn't have happened without Pat, but she's helped the process enormously.
It doesn't matter who you are, what you are, it's what you do with your life. And I say, keep up the good work, the good people of Altrincham. And if I'm 6 feet under and they start to threaten a hospital, you get out there with your Zimmer frames and I'll be leading the charge.
She was a remarkable lady. Well, that's it for this week. Don't forget you can watch again via the BBC iPlayer. I'll see you next Monday, 7:30 on BBC One. Bye-bye. Next week, I'm on the road with the old rockers from Liverpool who just never stop touring.